Tomorrow marks 2 years since the start of the war in Ukraine. The conflict has seen more than 200,000 Ukrainians leave their homes and taking sanctuary in towns and cities across the UK.
One centre in Norfolk has become a vital community hub for local families, and that's where our reporter John Maguire is this morning for us. John, good to see you. And these hubs, they're crucial not just for, obviously, access to stuff, life stuff, but also just being able to communicate, to see people who understand what you're going through.
I think hub is a perfect word for it, actually, Naga. We're in Dereham in Norfolk, a one-stop shop because they can access all of these facilities, as you say, and also meet each other. We'll find out a little bit more about that in just a second. We're upstairs in what was a former shop in the town centre. As you can see here, lots of toys, children's clothes. This is a clothes bank. So the idea set up a couple of years ago that Ukrainian refugees, imagine, they would have left home often pretty much just about what they could carry, what they were standing up in. It means that they can come in here and get clothing, full range. So winter coats here, men's and women's, written in Ukrainian and English, pyjamas, all sorts of clothes for children, all sorts of different sizes, as I say, men and women for different seasons, shoes too. It's proved to be absolutely vital. Not just that sort of community centre, that place that everybody can come together, but some of the practical help as well. It's made a real difference to people who've gone through some of the worst experiences it's possible for a human being to undergo.
Usually you open every day and you see what happened last. So yesterday it was maybe for 15 minutes, sometimes it's 4 hours, it depends.
Just imagine if the very first thing you did every morning was to check to see if your home 1,500 miles away was being targeted by an air raid.
I have this app in the telephone and we know which air alert we have. So usually it's every day, sometimes twice a day.
Oksana fled Kyiv with her children and mother when the war started. She's extremely grateful for the welcome she's had here, but wants to return home. The hardest thing, she says, is not knowing when it will be safe or even possible.
When we arrived, we didn't expect that we spend Christmas here, even Christmas. Now we spend 2 Christmases here. And if you ask me what I expect, I want to spend my next Christmas home. But now we realize more and more that we have no plans, we don't know.
Twice a week, volunteers open this store in Dereham town centre to Ukrainian refugees and latterly also people from other countries. There are English lessons, a clothing bank, information on housing and jobs, even furniture for those setting up a new home. It's also a place for people to meet. Mila, Natalia and Tatiana can catch up in their own language. Through missile strikes, power cuts and a constant state of fear, Mila says she stayed in Ukraine until very recently, until her life became unbearable. There are so many reasons to leave and yet so many to stay. Some feel they have little choice but to remain, like Natalia's parents.
We are not safe. There is no safe place in Ukraine. So my aunts, they are, well, you cannot get used to that. You cannot get used to be scared all the time that maybe next alarm will make your house ruined because of rocket bill or bombing. So, but yeah, they are stressed, they not happy, but they can't leave. They just cannot imagine themselves somewhere else.
Tatiana also still has family in Kyiv, including her husband and their 21-year-old daughter, a family torn in half. She left for the sake of her youngest, 9-year-old Katya. During lulls in the fighting, Tatiana and Katya have been home. Precious moments.
That was really excited to go to home and see everyone. Yeah, I was really happy and see my cats, everyone, family. And I can see my house and my toys. Yeah, I have lots of toys.
11-year-old Timur is young enough to have learned excellent English over the past 2 years, but old enough to remember the only country he'd ever known.
It was like everyone was crying and sad about it because they're not going to see us in like more than a year. And yeah, that was sad. and stuff. All my friends were sad, and I was sad.
Tomorrow, the volunteers and the Ukrainian guests, as they're known, will mark the second anniversary of the Russian invasion with a peace day. All will hope, perhaps against hope, that there will be no third anniversary of war in their homeland.
Always busy here in the Ukrainian Aid Centre in the centre of Dereham. The volunteers just unloading some food that's been donated. It also acts as a food bank. As you can see, soft play area here, children's toys. That's some of the furniture that we were talking about again when people are setting up home. The demand, the need is still very much there. Zoe's with us, Zoe Waits, and Antonina as well. Zoe, you run a transport company here. We've been to film with you before. You're no longer running those huge 44-ton lorries over to Ukraine. What's your emphasis now?
So the legislation changed last year, which made it harder to take the humanitarian aid out there. So we're now focusing on 4x4 vehicles that we take out there. We're leaving next Thursday, actually, with one full of medical aid. We then go to Odessa to a foundation called Moto Health, who will then deliver the medical aid onwards to anybody that needs it, basically.
And it's your partner, Scott, that does a lot of the driving and heads over there. Have the needs changed in the last couple of years?
Still medical, still food, but there is an awful lot of aid out in the country. So our end goal this year is we'd like to raise funds for a 10-ton military truck so that we can take that into the country, leave it there. Scott will then fly backwards and forwards, and he'll also deliver the aid that's in the country whilst he's out there.
Yeah. Okay, and I remember you telling us last year, and Scott telling us too, some of the scenes he's seen are very upsetting, very difficult. Antonina, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You live here now.
Yes.
You had left initially when the war started for a few months, but then went home to try to go back home.
I'm here since April. Before I used to live in Italy, but I back home because so much miss, and my daughter so much cry, want to see father. And we try to live in Kiev, but it's impossible. A lot of rockets, sirens, and we just scared, and my daughter have a lot of mental problem, and I just in one moment decide I need to leave. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you to British people for this chance to be safe.
Because you've had an amazing welcome here. This is a great community.
And here, safe and welcome.
And you've lived with a host family, or
yes,
just tell me what you're doing?
Yes, I live with host family. They are generous, kind with us, and everything. I feel like I'm at home.
And speaking of back home, your parents are still there? Tell us about.
My parents still in Kherson in front line. They don't want to move to another place. It's so sad, but it's real. You know, they live in an empty house just for people, but it's 9th floor. It's unbelievable. But now life is unpredictable. We don't know. We don't know we will see each other or not. You know, it's a big question for everyone who from Ukraine.
And what's it like? You're safe now, your daughter's safe, thankfully, here, but what's it like just having all of that uncertainty? Not knowing what the future holds, really, not knowing if and when you'll be able to go home.
About the future?
Yeah.
I don't know, really. It's everything else unpredictable. We don't know, I don't know. Maybe we stay here, maybe not, I don't know.
All right, just taking each day as it comes, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. All the very best to you and your family, not only here but back home. Zoe, good luck with the future trips across. Obviously, that need is still there. The news agenda changes all the time. Charlie and Aggie, you know better than anybody in the international agenda as well, but the demand is obviously still there. Still, of course, very much a war zone. Still that huge need for people in the most desperate of circumstances. Luckily, there are people here right across the UK who are prepared to help, to do whatever they can to try to make people's lives just that little bit different, just that little bit better. Back to you.
John, thank you very much.
Reporter John Maguire is spending some time this morning. Oh, I'm glad you've got a cup of tea or coffee there, John. I think it's perfectly fitting in terms of just what this centre means for the people who use it, and hub being the key word.
totally right, Naga. The international language of tea and coffee brings people together, doesn't it? And that's exactly one of the elements here, a drop-in centre really, just to come and enjoy a cuppa, catch up with people, either some of the volunteers that run this incredible centre at Dereham here in Norfolk, or other people from Ukraine. That's essential. Of course, people are landing here with no knowledge of English, so that's one of the very first things that they help them with. I'll just show you a quick look round. When people are here, of course, they're setting up home for the first time many times if they move out of their host families' homes. So there's furniture there, lots of information about doctor's surgeries, about transport, about schools, about council services, furniture extending on there. All of this furniture at the back there is going to be delivered to somebody later on this afternoon. There's a small temporary classroom here just where they do English lessons, very crucially, and also psychology as well. There are counselling sessions here. And some of these soft areas are where people are able to sit down, have a cup of tea, just try and relax. It's a safe space, really. And thankfully, it's here because it's here for people who've been through some atrocious times. Well, I'm with Ian, who set this place up, and with Svina, who's a psychologist who runs these weekly sessions here to help people with their mental well-being, I suppose. Ian, we met 2 years ago. You said to me this morning, did I remember what you were talking about when we met?
Yeah, two years ago. Time seems to have flown. We met when we were working on the first lorries that we were sending across. We discussed whether we thought it might last weeks, months, and here we are 2 years later with no end, sadly, in sight.
And have the needs changed? Has your operation changed?
Changed dramatically in that period. I mean, initially we were sending aid to the front line. When we first started welcoming families to Dereham and the Norfolk area, we were issuing families with essential items like food, clothing, toiletries. Now, as things move on, hosts are becoming fewer and far between, so we're looking for accommodation, we're finding furniture, we're setting people up with furniture in their homes. The needs of the centre have been similar in some ways since day one, so looking to support both the guests from Ukraine and the host families with the English language lessons that we hold 4 times a week. People from a Broads team and other council agencies work within the centre on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it's very moving. It's quite upsetting sometimes when you're talking to people from Ukraine and hearing their stories. But when you ask them about the reception that they've had here in Britain, here in Dereham, their faces just light up. That must make you feel great.
Yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster. Has been an emotional roller coaster for 2 years. It's challenging, it's also rewarding, but when you realise that these people are human beings, you know, the journeys that they've been through, the stories that they tell, it's quite humbling, it's quite eye-opening, and you realise how lucky and fortunate, you know, most people in the UK actually are.
Absolutely. Svina, tell me how you help people here with your weekly sessions.
Oh, thank you for your question. It's a very important question for me because, as you know, I'm a psychologist, and in this period of my life, I understand how important is my specialty, and I am very glad that any time ago we have created and opened a psychological center in the Dereham Aid Center, and every Friday we have new training session. It's group session when a lot of people who need help learning and understand more about themselves, and also they had not just group trainings, are also individual trainings. Individual consultation,
yeah,
after or before training.
You know exactly what they've been through, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very important for them, and it's very important for me.
Do you give them a toolkit to try to help them? What do you do?
Yes, absolutely. We are talking about their problem, and after they better understand what they can do in this situation.
Good, excellent. Well, keep up the good work. Both of you, absolutely vital work that they do. You can see some of the people just enjoying a cuppa bacon sandwich this morning, relaxing, I suppose, reminiscing to connecting through that mother tongue. I think it's really very important for them. And of course, what Ian said, they're human beings. It'd be good if everybody remembered that, wouldn't it? Back to you.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Good thought. Thanks very much. We'll speak soon.